I believe there are two things going on with the hacking. One, these are shark bumps. If you don't know what a shark bump is, sharks, when you're swimming with the sharks, which is just a stupid idea, but when you're swimming with the sharks, you don't want to move. A great white might come up to you, and they bump you. And they bump you to see if you move, see if you're food. If you move, you're food. It is the first thing they do before they attack something. They check it out, see what it is. That's exactly what I think is happening right now in some ways with our cybersecurity. Look what has happened. 2016, Russia went into our elections. They didn't succeed, but they went in, and the only reason why they didn't succeed is because they were looking at the state level. They were not looking at the local precincts. That's something that Russians don't really understand or didn't understand. So what is the United States doing? We're trying to make sure that all of our elections are national. A huge, huge mistake. But cybersecurity, Russia was in on our elections. They were in on our elections again in 2020. Now we have a couple of other stories. Then we have the infrastructure of the United States being attacked. And notice that with an exception of the first hack in 2016, these are all private entities. Now, why would that be? Why would you attack private entities? They have attacked now an oil pipeline. They've attacked our meat facility. The only thing that came close was the New York subway system. But when they went into the New York subway system, they didn't cripple it, and they didn't do anything. They just went in, and they had just put in new cameras and these new train cars that were all Chinese, partially owned by the Chinese Communist Party. And New York immediately shut those trains down because they could see someone was inside monitoring and seeing what was going on. They did not hack it. They did not try to stop it, and they didn't hold New York hostage. The only time that we're being held hostage is with private companies. And these private companies are affecting our way of life. These are not small companies. It's not like they're doing what was it? Sony was hacked a few years ago. I don't really care if you hack Sony. I mean, I don't want it to happen, and we should be working to stop all cybercrime like this. But it doesn't affect my life. However, meat does, fuel does. Now, I want you to listen to Jen Psaki and what she said yesterday.
These hackers based in Russia have disrupted American gas supplies and American meat supplies. Why do you think that these ransomware attacks have been rising since President Biden took office?
Well, first, I would say these are private sector entities who have a responsibility to put in place measures to protect their own cybersecurity. As it relates to why criminal actors are taking actions against private sector entities, I don't think I'm the right one to speak to that.
So total coincidence.
I think you could certainly go track down those cyber criminals in Russia and have a good chat with them.
Okay. If you have any leads, we'll take that.
Okay.
So she's mocking it. But notice what she's doing. She's pointing out private sector. Now, I've never heard a White House do that before. I've never heard the White House hear of an attack on something that is really, truly critical infrastructure. It is private, but it is critical infrastructure. It is a private pipeline. It is a private meat processing company. And yet, the White House last time, when it was Colonial Pipeline, said, if they want to negotiate, they should negotiate. Something else I had never heard before. I've never heard the United States of America say negotiate with terrorists. And that's exactly what these people are, terrorists. So what's happening here? Remember, this is a power grab. And it is part of the Great Reset. And if you understand what the Great Reset is, the Great Reset is a public-private partnership where the government is involved in everything. So if the government stops doing their job and protecting us from things that are a clear and present danger to private corporations, just because it's not owned by the United States government, doesn't mean that it's less important. We have a different system here. Our electricity grid, everything should be private, but FDR threw that out the window. And ever since, they've been trying to get all of the critical infrastructure under the umbrella of the United States government. That way, they have complete control of everything. So now the White House is holding up our private companies and basically saying we're not going to do anything about it because it's a private issue. This is going to continue to happen until it gets so bad that the United States Joe Biden didn't want to get involved. These are private corporations. I don't want to get involved, but now I have to because these private corporations just won't do what they need to do to protect themselves. And this is critical infrastructure, and that's why we need to be involved in this critical infrastructure. When it comes to gas, when it comes to fuel, I'm telling you this is what is coming, and it is as clear as it was when Hugo Chavez was trying to take over Citgo. Oh, no, we're not going to, that's a private. He takes it over, and what happens? He destroys it. And end of Venezuela. This is coming with our food, with our gas, and other critical infrastructure. And I'm telling you right now, it's only going to happen to private companies. I mean, I know they attacked the subways in New York, a story that most people have never even heard of. That was China. But they didn't shut it down, and they didn't hold it hostage. You attack our power grid. You attack something that is public power, public water. Well, then you start to move into active war. But this is just business. This is just private individuals not doing what they have to do to shore up against these hackers. That's exactly what is happening. We are being set up. The White House refuses to do anything about it. Congress is in the bag. The Senate, the Republicans are so damn busy playing with themselves and talking about, what are we gonna do to compromise on this latest bill? Instead of looking at the real issues, the entire country is looking at bogus outrages. Bogus outrages. For instance, let me give you this. Outrage is a fifth grader from New Jersey dresses up as Hitler for school. Now, is this worth the time it took to write? I mean, yeah, it's bad, I guess. But listen to the story. Parents are outraged as a fifth grader from a New Jersey school was given permission by her teacher to do a presentation on Adolf Hitler, in which the student listed Hitler's accomplishments. Now, this sounds bad, right? Read on. Each student was asked to choose a historic figure to present to the rest of the class. Part of the assignment, The student involved dressed up as the mass-murdering Nazi tyrant and wrote an essay in first person in a somewhat celebratory tone. The essay was then displayed in the school's hallways alongside other students' work. Still sounds bad. The essays include sentences such as, "My belief in anti-Semitism drove me to kill more than 6 million Jews. I was pretty great, wasn't I?" The controversial incident was brought to the attention of the Board of Education by concerned parents who saw the display of all the different historic figures without any context of the nature of the assignment. Here's the context. The incident was then investigated by the Board of Education, at the end of which the board announced it is unfair to judge any student or teacher in this matter because the lesson was in the context of social justice. The board further added the public schools condemn anti-Semitism and racism, yada, yada, yada. This was a teacher that was Jewish. And what they had to do was pick historic figures who personify good and evil. The students were asked to both speak as their chosen historic figure, to rationalize their actions as the historic figures might have done, but also point out as the student what these actions were, good or evil. How is this a national outrage? If you want to go on anti-Semitism, let's look at the real outrage. The head of Google Diversity. Google Diversity. Now, Google is a company that is looking to weed out hate. They're running algorithms and working on algorithms to make sure that hate just isn't tolerated. Well, that's great, but how do you define hate? Well, I think the Google Diversity head doesn't really understand hate because he has posted on his blog that Jews have an insatiable appetite for war and insensitivity to the suffering of others. Now, Google, the one who's controlling speech, the one who is trying to make sure that nobody says anything hateful, the head of diversity says that the Jews have insensitivity to suffering of others and an insatiable appetite for war. Yeah, but did you hear what that fifth grader did in the hallway? We are being led down the wrong road every single day. We have to understand what is important and what is a show. What's happening in our schools with CRT is critical. In fact, anything that's happening in our schools that starts with the word critical is critical, and it has to be stopped. But we also have to look at the bigger picture. People talking about the high gas price. Well, it's not the story of the high gas price. It's why do we have high gas prices? The reason why we have high gas prices is because the president is on a jihad against oil. He has stopped the pipeline. Then he didn't protect the infrastructure and didn't do anything to help. He said to the Colonial Pipeline people, go ahead and negotiate with the terrorists. On top of that, he's doing everything he can environmental-wise. He's making California look like rookies. So let's start talking about the why things are happening, why they are happening. Because that's the important part. Why was Tony Fauci lying? Why? That's the important part.